Welcome to Data Talk, presented by IDEA Data and Research. DATA stands for Data Analysis Techniques Applied. Data Talk is a series of webinars for Arkansas's local education agencies on the use of data, particularly for special education staff. The series covers basic concepts of data, including understanding data resources, context of data, basic analytical techniques, and guidance on various IDEA data requirements. In this episode of Data Talk, we will be discussing how to respond to your results-driven accountability determination. First, however, let us review why we make annual RDA determinations and its components. Results-driven accountability, or RDA, determinations are made annually as required under Section 616D of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA. In Arkansas, RDA determination matrix is comprised of data components from the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, also known as the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, Accountability System, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Annual Performance Report. RDA determination components are comprised of 4 priority areas, and we are going to cover each before we discuss how to respond to your determination. Also, just a reminder that all data and information presented are specific to special education. Priority 1 is college and career readiness and includes the ESSA special education subgroup data for graduation and dropout. Graduation is the 4-year cohort graduation rate, and dropout is the single-year rate for grades 7 through 12. A picture of Priority Area 1 is in blue on the right side of the screen. Priority 2, Student Growth, is depicted in orange on the right side of the screen. ESSA growth is based on the percentile ranking of the residual or value-added score. Growth measures include students with disabilities who took the regular assessment. The alternate assessment is not part of the growth measure. There are separate scores for mathematics and English language arts. Next is Priority 3, Achievement. Achievement has 3 components and is depicted in green on the right side of the screen. The first component is participation of students with disabilities, or SWD, on statewide assessments. This measure includes both regular assessment and alternate assessment. Participation is reported for both mathematics and English language arts. Under the ESSA accountability system, 95% participation is required. The second component is weighted achievement. This is part of the state's ESSA accountability system. Weighted achievement is a combination of both mathematics and English language arts and includes regular and alternate assessment scores. The third component is early childhood outcomes. This measure only applies if the local education agency, or LEA, operates an early childhood special education program. And the example on the right illustrates an LEA who operates an early childhood special education program. If the LEA does not operate an early childhood special education program, then the matrix would show NA. Priority 4 is compliance. Compliance is scored on 4 sub-areas. Disproportionality, which is comprised of the annual performance report indicators 4B, 9, and 10. Implementation of IDEA, which include APR indicators 11, 12, and 13. Timely and accurate reporting, required data and documentation was submitted on time and accurately, and general supervision, long-standing noncompliance, which means correction of noncompliance was not made as soon as possible and no later than 1 year after the noncompliance was identified. Now let us review the 4 possible RDA determination results. First is meets requirements. An LEA's determination is meets requirements if the RDA rate is at least 80%, unless the Office of Special Education has imposed special conditions on the LEA's last 3 IDEA Part B grant awards, and those special conditions are in effect at the time of the current determination. The second possible result is needs assistance. An LEA's determination is needs assistance if the RDA rate is at least 60%, but less than 80%. An LEA would also be a needs assistant if its compliance score is 80% or above, but the Office of Special Education has imposed special condition on the LEA's last three IDEA Part B grant awards, and those special conditions are in effect at the time of the current determination. The third possible result is needs intervention. An LEA's determination is needs intervention if the RDA rate is less than 60%. And the fourth possible outcome is needs substantial intervention. The Office of Special Education has not made a determination of needs substantial intervention for any LEA. Responding to the LEA's RDA determination. Meets requirements. If the Office of Special Education determines an LEA meets requirements and the LEA is at 100% for compliance, no enforcement actions are associated with the determination of meets requirements. However, if the Office of Special Education determines an LEA meets requirements but is less than 100% for compliance, which means they have a score earned less than 4 for any of the compliance indicators on page 3 of the RDA determination matrix, which we covered on slide 5 of this presentation, or a specific compliance indicator of the APR. The LEA must complete a response table addressing the specific compliance indicators. Responding to the LEA's RDA determination. Meets requirements under substantially compliant. An LEA is considered to be substantially compliant if the compliance rate is within 5% of the target. An LEA will receive the full 4 points on the RDA matrix, but must address the non-compliance since they are below 100%. For example, Indicator 11, Child Find, Indicator 12, Early Childhood Transition, and Indicator 13, Secondary Transition, all require 100% compliance. Therefore, the target is 100%. However, if an LEA rate is between 95 and 100%, they are considered substantially compliant in their implementation of IDEA. Let us continue looking at responding to the LEA's RDA determination. Meets requirements under substantially compliant. Another example from the priority for compliance components are those related to disproportionality. Indicator 4B, discipline. Indicator 9, disproportionate representation as a child with a disability. And Indicator 10, disproportionate representation as a child with a disability in a specific disability category. Arkansas scores the disproportionality indicators based on the number of consecutive years an LEA is required to complete the self-assessment of policies, procedures, and practices. Now we'll continue looking at the LEA's RDA determination for needs assistance. An LEA's determination is needs assistance if the RDA rate is between 60% but less than 80%. An LEA could also be in needs assistance if its compliance score is 80% or above, but the Office of Special Education has imposed special conditions on the LEA's last 3 IDEA Part B grant awards, and those special conditions are still in effect at the time of the current determination. In the center of the screen is a picture of a district's scores for determination of needs assistance. Year 1 of needs assistance. If an LEA is identified as needing assistance for 1 year, it is required to review the noted areas of deficiency and submit a response table addressing these areas if the deficiency is a compliance indicator. Any compliance indicator with a score earned less than 4 on page 3 of the RDA determination matrix or a specific compliance indicator of the annual performance report must be addressed in the response table. Now let's look at responding to the LEA's RDA determination of needs assistance for 2 or more consecutive years. In accordance with Section 616E1 of the IDEA and 34 CFR 600.604A, an LEA identified as needs assistance for 2 or more years, the Office of Special Education must take one of the following actions. Require the LEA to obtain technical assistance, including consultation and/or professional development from the Office of Special Education or other resources available to and within the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. Require the LEA to use its IDEA Part B funds to obtain technical assistance in the areas in which the LEA needs assistance, including explicit plans for addressing the areas of concern within a specified period of time. Require the LEA to redirect its fiscal or human resources to the areas in which the district needs assistance, or identify the LEA as a high-risk grantee and impose special conditions on the LEA's grant under Part B of IDEA. As we continue looking at how to respond to the LEA RDA determination, there are currently no LEAs identified as needs intervention or needs substantial intervention. If LEAs were identified, the required actions the state may impose builds upon the needs assistance actions and becomes more directive in nature. Directive actions may include redirecting human and fiscal resources, classifying an LEA as a high-risk grantee, withholding payments, and pursue the recovery of IDEA funds. Who needs to complete the response table? Any LEA with the following RDA determinations: meets requirements under substantial compliance, needs assistance, needs intervention, or substantially needs intervention. The response table form can be found on the Monitoring and Program Effectiveness website under Monitoring Procedure and then go down to District Determination. The same form is used for both early childhood and school-age programs. The link is provided on the bottom of the page. Completing the response table. On the screen is a picture of the response table form. The response table requires LEAs to address areas identified in the RDA matrix and/or APR profiles. They must write a summary of findings from their review of policy, procedures, and practices, the cause of the deficiency, and corrective or improvement steps being taken to rectify the issue. As we continue looking at completing the response table, since the data which led to the RDA determination results is a year old, many of the issues concerns raised by the determination has already been addressed in some manner. For example, for indicators 4B, 9, and 10, which address disproportionate representation, a self-assessment has already been conducted and steps taken to mitigate the issue. In responding to this flag, a score less than 4 on the RDA matrix, an LEA would summarize the steps already taken to mitigate the issue, describe activities that address the issue currently and moving forward, address if they are no longer identified as an LEA with possible disproportionate representation. Completing the response table if an LEA's RDA determination meets requirements substantial compliance or needs assistance due to indicators 11, 12, or 13, they must identify the reason for the noncompliance, address actions already taken to mitigate the noncompliance, address current and planned steps being taken to ensure all timelines and age requirements as outlined in IDEA are met 100% of the time. In completing the response table, if an LEA's RDA determination meets requirements, substantial compliance, or needs assistance due to timely and accurate reporting, which includes information from all Office of Special Education sections, they must identify the reason for the noncompliance. Was the information provided for data entry incorrectly? Was it a data entry issue? Why was the deadline for file submission, such as CCEIS tool and application, missed? Address actions already taken to mitigate the noncompliance, and address actions current and planned steps being taken to ensure all timelines are met. You can call your SEA if you have questions about completing the response table. The state's review of response tables. The Office of Special Education reviews response tables and will look for the following. Does it address identified areas? Does it include a review of policy, procedures, and practice? Do the steps align with the identified areas? Is the form complete and was it submitted on time? If there are questions, someone will reach out to the school district. Thank you for viewing this episode of Data Talk. We hope you found it to be helpful and will join us for upcoming Data Talk episodes. Our contact information is IDEA Data and Research, University of Arkansas at Little Rock, 2801 South University, Stabler Hall 406, Little Rock, Arkansas 72204. Our phone number is 501-916-3219. Our fax number is 501-916-3238. If you have any questions, you can contact Dr. Jody Fields at jafields@ualr.edu.